Sometimes fate plays mysterious games with us, when an ordinary person turns out to be a pawn on the chessboard of life. This is the story of a guy who, being ordinary and inconspicuous, became the object of manipulation and insidious intrigue. He was caught up in fate, but did not know that this tackle would lead him to tremendous change. What awaited him along the way? What trials and temptations would fate lay before him? In this story of amazing drama, we will uncover the secrets, strengths, and weaknesses of an ordinary man who faced unpredictable twists and turns of fate. Are you ready to dive into this story and unravel the secrets that an ordinary guy holds? Then welcome to a fascinating world of amazing stories, where every step can be fatal and every decision can be life-changing. Get ready for an immersion in the overpowering whirlpool of events and emotions. This is a story not to be missed. Shakespeare has a phrase, "Poor love, if it can be measured." Aren't those beautiful words? I would add one more to them. And then the phrase would go like this: love is poor if it can be measured or evaluated. We have been taught a few common truths since childhood. That which is neither for sale nor to be bought. That which is most precious in our lives. These are such truths as honesty, hard work, reverence for our elders, and the word love was a separate item. On the subject of love, many books have been written, and many films have been made. You can get seriously buried in arguments about it and never get out of it. Today, I will tell you a story that happened in real life. And the answer to the question, was there love there? You're on your own. It was an ordinary Monday. Around 7 a.m., I opened my eyes, got out of bed, and was just getting ready for work. Suddenly, I remembered that I had taken a week off from the chief on my own dime. The last 2 weeks at work had been a nightmare. As usual, we pulled the project to a deadline and then tried to catch up quickly in Keynote. Since I worked as a web designer, I spent those days sitting at my computer with only my nose, food, and toilets to go away. All of the factors described above led to me gaining extra pounds and stress, which made it difficult for me to fall asleep and then wake up. Anyway, after successfully turning in this project, I decided to get back to working out and took the weekend off from my boss to get into a new rhythm. After a light breakfast, I laid down on the couch and spent about an hour with a tablet, studying the latest news. Since I had just fallen out of life because of my busy work, I then started getting ready to head to the gym. On the way, I was glad that I could finally fully enjoy the half-empty gym and the free machines. When I hopped into the gym, I smiled as usual at the girl at the front desk, grabbed my locker keys, and raced to the locker room. When I went into the gym, I involuntarily had a smile on my face, because there was only me in the gym and all the exercise equipment was completely at my disposal. At first I jogged on the track for a while, then I crossed over to the trainer, then I moved on to strength training exercises. After doing an approach with dumbbell arms spreading, I took a time out and, walking around the gym along the machines, watched from the panoramic windows as a traffic jam started to gather on the avenue near our gym. Perhaps my feelings were gloating, but it felt good to know that at this moment I was in the gym and improving my health while others were standing in traffic and getting nervous. After standing for a while, I continued my workout, doing strength training. I thought about myself, about my life, and that I needed to make some changes. As the years fly by and I'm already over 30, and even no hints on the subject of creating their own family and having children, I have not. Yes, now it is called a fancy word, child-free. But it is not about me, because I was generally without a couple and stable relationship. I was not. As a rule, by the age of 30, a man is more conscious in his choice of a couple, and he is not interested in fleeting affairs and wants some kind of stability. Since my previous relationship ended in nothing, I decided to take a break and just go to work. I note that in this case, and my nerves were calm, and the productivity of work has increased. In general, it was a complete calm. Let me say a few words about myself. Ever since kindergarten, in terms of choosing a girl, I approached extremely seriously, because I choose the best. Perhaps you will find it banal and cause an ironic smile, but right from kindergarten, I liked the most beautiful girls. When I was in high school, I didn't change my principles, and that caused me a lot of problems. As I was not distinguished neither by my looks nor my physical strength. Because of that, I often got spanked by the tougher guys because they liked pretty girls too. After graduation, there was university, during my studies in which, to my shortcomings, another problem was added. This lack of the right amount of money, as all the pretty girls, more often than not, were mercantile. In general, we are done with the disadvantages. Now about the advantages. I graduated from high school without any problems and found a job which was interesting for me. It was the same with the girls. I was always surrounded by a lot of them. These were numerous girlfriends, as well as work colleagues. I had long affairs with some, but with all this, I did not have strong feelings for any of them. Then I hurt them a lot. I always tried not to deceive girls and told it like it was. And girls were with me anyway. That's how it went on for a while. And now that I'm in my 30s, these short-lived intrigues just got to me, and I just wanted some peace. So, after I finished working with dumbbells, I went over to the barbell and was about to start putting weights on it, when suddenly she walked in the gym. It was a medium-height brunette. She looked about 25 years old and had a slender and beautiful body. It was immediately obvious that she was good at sports, but at that moment her body was of secondary importance, as she was very beautiful in the face. I was immediately struck by her green eyes and plump lips, and by my 30s I had learned to distinguish between the artful work of a beautician and naturalness. And in this case, it was the latter. Her facial features were extremely perfect, and I simply had nothing to complain about. Again, I myself am far from perfect, and when I saw a beautiful girl, immediately tried to find some flaws in her appearance, in order to convince myself that in this world nothing is perfect, and everyone has flaws. And sometimes not perfect looks can hide a perfect soul, but in the appearance of this girl was perfect everything. She walked past me, and smiling slightly, whispered softly, "Good afternoon," to which I replied, "Kind," and went back to preparing my barbell. And she put her wireless headphones in her ears and got on the treadmill. Influenced by the spectacular appearance of this stranger, I loaded extra on the barbell, and had a hard time making my first approach. My arms almost cramped, and I realized that I had made a mistake, but I still pulled it out, as I could not lose face. That time the girl went on a light jog, and I, sitting on the bench, silently admired her beauty. At that moment, in my head, as in the processor of a supercomputer, thousands of thoughts and conjectures were spinning, but most importantly, I clearly understood that I was hooked. Yes, she had struck a grown man just by looking, doing nothing and not trying very hard. It was extremely stupid and unpleasant for me to realize this, but I had to admit my defeat, because my analytical mind had gone somewhere. Maybe at this point it had taken a day off, just like me. After unloading the bar a little and doing a couple more sets, I already realized that I would not forgive myself if I did not meet this girl. Moreover, we were the only ones in the gym, and such coincidences are extremely rare. I decided to take action and went in her direction. She was running on the track at the time because she had wireless headphones in her ears and the music was probably playing loudly, so she didn't immediately hear me addressing her. So I walked around her track, stood right in front of her and said hi again. "My name is Andrew." On what she reduced the pace of running to a slow walk, and then took out her headphones and said, "Hello, nice to meet you. I'm Aliona," and extended her hand to me, and it looked somehow friendly, as if we knew each other before. I decided to go straight to you and continued, "Sorry to interrupt your running, but I couldn't forgive myself if I didn't come over and meet you. You look great. You've been training for a long time. I haven't seen you here before. Thank you for the compliments. This is my first time here as I recently moved to the area, and I chose this gym based on online reviews, and I see I was not mistaken. It's really comfortable." Well, yeah, if it wasn't for some dude introducing himself, I guffawed. Come on, it's okay. I am fine with dating and communicating with adequate people. Especially I am a Gemini by zodiac sign, and we, by nature, extroverted, and cannot live a day without communication, and without learning something new, Eliona said with a smile. Oh, do you believe in horoscopes? I asked. Not that I believe, but there's something in them, because I noticed that in people of one sign a certain quality prevails, about which they write in books. And so it's a convenient topic of conversation. What sign are you? I'm a member of the fire element, I said with a smile. Ovine or lion? She asked me. Almost there. I'll give you a hint. I'm a smoldering fire, and my sign is the penultimate of the year. You're a Sagittarius, she said, and then I proudly replied with a smile. Yes, I am a Sagittarius, a fiery wanderer and an eternal seeker of the ideal. To which Eliona laughed softly and said, At school, I had a friend who was a Sagittarius. We were great friends, but then she went abroad. In general, the sign is not bad, but with its own characteristics. Everyone is special in his own way. I think you can find a common language with everyone. What are you doing tonight? I wanted to get right to the point, because from experience I know that girls don't like guys who are hesitant. More often than not, they leave them in the friend zone, and in this case, I could not allow that. Eliona was a little embarrassed by the unexpected turn of conversation, but then said with a smile, Tonight, I have English tonight, and then Pilates. And you probably wanted to invite me for coffee. I have to admit, I did not expect such an answer from her, since the girls of this type are usually at first make a show of it and include unapproachable. But here she is on the contact. For a few seconds I hovered, and a slight blush appeared on my cheeks. Then I answered. The answer is trivial. Yes, you can, and not just coffee. I do not mind, but today will probably be late, because I'll be free around 21:00, and you'll probably be resting by that time. What's there to rest for? It's kid time. Just at this time the city is freer. There are no traffic jams, and you can easily drive through all this beautiful places. Are you from Kiev? No, I am from Dnieper, but I have been living and working in Kiev since I was 18. I received my first higher education here, and now I'm studying by correspondence. Also, I graduated from the School of Models and do freelance shoots. There are my photos in some magazines and banners in the city's malls. Where are you from, and what do you do? I'm from Donetsk. I moved here as an engineer because of the war, but I successfully completed a web design course and am working on my new job. Okay, if you do not mind, then leave me your number and I can pick you up in the evening after class, and we will have a good time, I promise. With a smile and a little uncertainty, I said, Okay, but let's better write to each other on Messenger, as I may not be able to answer the phone at that moment, said Eliona, and dictated me her numbers. After that, I went to do my approach to the bar, and people began to arrive in the gym. I decided not to bore her with my communication, and after doing a couple more exercises, went to the locker room. After a quick shower and change of clothes, I headed home. As I was leaving the gym, I saw a white Porsche Cayenne in the parking lot. I probably wouldn't have paid much attention to it if it wasn't for its license plate. The plate read Alina in Latin letters, and on the back seat of the car I saw a small stuffed toy, a pink bunny. I must admit that I was shocked by what I saw. It gave me the creeps. I was sure that it was her car, as she was the only girl in the room. Yes, nobody but a girl could drive such a car a priori. Man, what am I looking at? My income isn't enough to keep her in the car, let alone the girl herself. I resented myself. Then I got into my 7-year-old Mazda and drove towards home. On the way, I stopped at a gas station, where in addition to gasoline, I also bought coffee and milk. Sitting at a table at the gas station, I thought about what had happened. I really liked this girl, both in appearance and in communication. I knew perfectly well that if I was to flog her, or rather not to eat her, then I shouldn't even write to her. But my gut was reaching out to her. To share my worries, I decided to call my friend and colleague Pashka. "Hello, what do you say? How was your day off?" In a cheerful voice, said Pashka. "Yes, everything is fine. No work to rest. And you now convenient to talk? You are not busy?" I asked. "You're lucky. I'm totally free because I went out for lunch." "What's wrong with your voice? Does it sound a little agitated?" said Pasha. "Basically, it's okay. So I'm a little surprised," I answered. "What or who surprised you, my friend?" "Sirene," said Pasha. I told him how I had met Alina, to which Pasha replied that I should not make premature conclusions and be sure to go to meet her, because the Porsche could have been given to her by her daddy or her parents. And do not immediately put your hands down and put a brand on this girl. I spent the whole day thinking about her. I tried to find her on social networking sites in order to make at least a brief analysis of her personality, but unfortunately, except for her number and a Viber account, I had nothing. At about 7 p.m., I messengered with her on Messenger, where we agreed that at 9 p.m., I would pick up Elena after her Pilates class. These classes were held in a building which was located in the central part of the city. At 8:50 p.m., I was already there as I had decided to arrive early. On the way, I stopped at a flower shop and bought a bouquet of long white roses. I decided not to tie them up and just put the flowers on the back seat. When I arrived at the parking lot, I immediately started looking around at the cars that were parked there, but there were no Porsche. Could it be a coincidence, or had I gotten myself wound up for nothing? I thought, although something told me that the Porsche belonged to Alina, and now she decided not to shine. At exactly 9 p.m., Alina came out of the building. When I saw her, I got out of the car and waved. She came up and smiling said, "Are you punctual? Are you always like this?" "Pretty much." With a smile, I answered. Then I opened the back door of the car and took out the flowers. "Wow, very nice. They are so long and beautiful," said Aliona happily. "You are more beautiful," I said with a smile. Then we got in the car. I asked Elena if she wanted to eat, to which she replied that she does not eat after 18, but from coffee would not refuse. My suggestion to go to a cafe or restaurant, she said no, citing fatigue and unwillingness to see a large crowd, and we decided to stop at McDrape. After buying a glass of latte, we drove in the direction of the Arch of Friendship of Nations for a walk across the glass bridge. Walking across it, we chatted about everything. I told about my native land and how I was waiting for the war to be over, and also that I liked the sky and plains very much. And Aliona also told me about her childhood and hobbies. Generally, our conversation was very good, but the only thing that disturbed me was her reluctance to tell about her modeling job. She just said that her photos were rather popular, and there were plenty of them everywhere. She also said that she was an economist by first profession, but now she was studying psychology by correspondence. Alina said she liked her future profession because she liked to communicate and get to know people. During our walk, someone kept calling her and she hung up. When I asked her who was bugging you, she replied that it was a friend and she didn't have time to answer her right now. Then I recommended texting her, to which Alina said she would call her back after our meeting. Despite the pleasant conversation and her external beauty, I had thoughts in my head that this girl is not who she says she is. Yes, and that Porsche did not give me peace. After the walk, Alina asked me to take her to the supermarket, which, she said, was near her house, where she allegedly wanted to buy some groceries. When I offered to help her carry her bag up to the entrance, she refused. When I got home, I made myself some tea and, sitting in the kitchen, thought about her for a long time. I really liked this girl, and she was the kind of person who attracts both the outside and the inner world, but for all her pluses, there was a note of understatement. That's what put me off. For the next 2 days after the meeting, we just corresponded and called each other in Messenger. In my 30s, I felt that I was seriously attracted to her. My friend Pasha advised me to take a closer look at her before making any further moves. And common sense told me to do the same. On the third day, we met again and took another walk through the city. This time, we walked over the bike bridge in the direction of Trukhanov Island. Since it was evening, we watched the scarlet sunset on the background of the Dnieper and a beautiful view of the Hem. It was a magnificent sight. But then suddenly someone dialed Alina, and she stepped aside to talk. I'm an adult, and I understand that there are things that need to be dealt with delicately and without extra ears, so I was sympathetic to it. But it still made me uneasy. When Alyona came back, she said that a manager from a modeling agency had called her with a job offer. When I asked what kind of shoot it would be, Alyona said that it was just a project so far, but the shoot would be abroad and with a good fee. Then I couldn't stand it and asked her if she knew how to drive a car, and she answered affirmatively and said she had a car. I was persistent and asked what kind, after which I saw her get a little confused, and then she said it was a mid-range foreign car and asked me to change the subject. I did not show it, but her answer I did not like, and it was obvious that she was hiding something. Let me put it this way, with Alina, we saw almost every day. Mostly it was a walk in the evening city. All my proposals to visit a restaurant or a cafe, she refused, arguing that at work she gets tired of people and wants a quiet and private communication. When I was alone with myself, all the time I was analyzing her every word and her reaction to my questions. At the same time, I liked her very much. Somewhere in the depths of my soul, I thought that finally I have found mine, and it is time to get closer to her. Because this format of our communication can simply go to the friend zone, and I will lose my chance again. And this time, I definitely will not forgive myself. So one day, I invited her to a movie night. Now, I don't remember what kind of movie it was, but I took couple seats, that is, the very last, higher comfort, with more space between the rows. Before the movie, we had coffee in the movie coffee shop, then grabbed a bucket of popcorn and headed to the auditorium. Somewhere near the end of the show, I waited for the romantic episode, and at that moment, I gently hugged Alina. She wouldn't take my hand away after about 5 minutes, and I kissed her. I will say that before my first balloon flight, I was not as worried as I was at that moment. But to my surprise, she did not pull away and reciprocated. I felt the tenderness of her lips and pressed her to me. Now it is difficult to convey all the tenderness and degree of that moment. Then I felt myself 10 years younger, and most importantly, that I felt her desire. After the movie, we went to my place, and there we had a sequel. Just in case, I bought wine in advance and also ordered a delivery of sushi. And this time my gut did not lead me astray, but then we were not up to sushi. When we arrived, we began to undress each other right outside the door, and then I took her to my bed. It's true what they say, making love to the person you're feeling in no way compares to what most people do. At that moment, I must have been really happy, because for the first time in years I had someone I liked both externally and internally. And I didn't care about all the other inconsistencies and suspicions at the time. But as it turned out later, I was dead wrong. When we woke up the next morning, which was Sunday, we again enjoyed each other, and then drank wine and ate sushi. We stayed in bed most of the day and didn't want to separate. Our phones were silent, and then I forgot about the strange calls, and I forgot about everything. At about 8 p.m., I called a cab for Alina, and she left for home. As she was leaving, I asked her to call me when she got there, but I didn't get the call. It had been over 2 hours since she had left, but she just wouldn't pick up the phone. There were just long beeps in response. Yes, this was not typical of me, but I began to worry wildly about her. It was about 2 o'clock in the morning when I got a call back from Alina. She said in a calm voice that she was fine and she was home, but my question as to why she did not answer. She said that she went to her friend who had recently been dumped by her boyfriend, and she simply had no chance to answer the phone, and she did not want to write an SMS. After these words, I silently hung up and then cut the phone off. At that moment, I felt like a sucker. Yes, that's right, an adult sucker. I walked around the apartment and only asked myself one question. How could I have fallen for all this, since even at first, it was obvious that she was murky? Man, how many more bumps do I have to fill before I can ignore these spunky heartbreakers? I and Pasha told me not to rush, again wasted time, and most importantly wasted so much nerves for nothing. The next day at work, during my lunch break, I told Pash about everything, to which he lit up and said thoughtfully, "Hey, buddy, what color is her Porsche?" "White, and the license plates." "Why?" I asked. "Anyway, I saw it yesterday in a cube." "In what scheme?" did I shout indignantly. "Don't shout so loud, or your colleagues will hear you." Well, it was like this. The guys and I, after hanging out in the cafe, went to a club to smoke hookah and drink whiskey. So, as we were getting out of the cab, I saw this white Porsche with a lens license plate in the parking lot. I immediately remembered you when we went into the club. Since it was Sunday, it wasn't crowded inside, and I saw two couples behind the adjacent couch. They were two spectacular girls, a blonde and a brunette. They looked about 25 years old, and they had two guys with them. At the time, I still had the thought of her with a picture, but I didn't dare. Do you happen to have a picture of her? I confess, after hearing this, I was in shock, and with an unsure move pulled out my phone. I showed a couple of photos of us together, and Pasha pointed his finger at Elena and said, "Buddy, is that her?" "Shit, 100%. That's her." I was a little drunk, but I remember her. "Well, do not worry, because you will find a million more like her." Pasha finished. I couldn't hear the last words because I was in shock. We left the smoking room and took our jobs. After work, I didn't go to the gym, though I had planned to. I stopped at a gas station, ate my dog's turn there, and then drove toward Borispil. I don't know why, but back in Donetsk, in any stressful situation or when I wanted to be alone, I would get in the car and drive to the airport. The fact that I have loved the sky and iron birds since childhood is one thing. But it was the airport that had a magical effect on me, and it calmed me down. I guess it was a place of power. I walked into Terminal D and went up to the departures area on the second floor. There, in a cozy coffee shop, I got myself a coffee and sat down at a table. I looked at the people who were waiting for their flight or checking in. Their faces were happy. My musings were interrupted by a call from Pasha. He said in a stuttering voice, "Andriuka, I found her. This is 100% her." "Why do you say that? Who is she?" I said in a depressed voice, "You're Aliona. She's an escort. I'll throw you a link and you'll see it yourself." "Okay, throw it," I said and hung up. I admit that I didn't give a shit anymore. But since Pashka tried and dug something out, so be it. I took a look. My phone shuddered slightly. It was a text message from Pasha on Viber. I opened the link and marveled. It was a website with a directory of girls and escorts. Aliona was there under a different name, but the weight, height, and age were correct. I looked and could not believe it. The one I was hugging and kissing, the one I thought was mine, was a trivial prostitute. She could be bought for money, for a lot of money. After looking at the picture, I threw the phone on the floor in anger and said with a wicked smile, "Well, at least I saved money." Then, behind me, I heard a pleasant woman's voice. "Man, what are you doing? Why are you throwing the phone?" I turned around and saw a pretty waitress. She looked about 20 years old. You know, there are those girls who, even when they grow up, still have a cute baby face. She wasn't wearing any makeup or traces of a beautician's work. Her blonde hair was in a neat ponytail. She stood looking at me. There was something kind and sincerely simple in her gaze. I sat and looked at her in silence. She came closer, looked me in the eyes one more time, and said, "Young man, believe me, any problem can be solved. It is not worth beating up the phone, as it will not help. After which she picked up my phone from the floor, put it on the table, and left. As she was leaving, I noticed her name tag. Her name was written on it in black and white: Aliona.